Question, what did your father do for a living?
Well, I'm so old I can hardly remember what my father did for a living, but he painted and he hung paper. He did just whatever he could find to do during the Depression. Work was very scarce.
Did your mother work outside of the home?
No, very few women at that time worked outside. But she did all of her work inside and raised her children and
Stop that, right?
we over now.
Yeah. Okay, Morgan, go ahead.
State your name, date of birth, and place of birth.
Well, I'm Altha Nash, and I was born in Beebe, Arkansas. And I was born in January of 1910, soon Road River Century.
During the Depression, what did your father do for a living?
Well, he did whatever work he could find. He hung paper, he painted houses, painted inside, painted signs, just whatever he could find to do to make a little money.
Did your mother work outside of the home?
Well, she had a lunch stand that she ran. We lived near a school building right across the street from where the school was. And she ran a little stand there selling hamburgers and soup and whatever the children would eat for lunch. And she made a little money that way, and that helped us out.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have 2 brothers and 1 sister.
What was your home like? Did you have electricity, a radio, and an automobile?
We had no automobiles, but we did have a radio, it seems to me. We did. Actually, I can't remember though much about a radio. I'm not sure whether we had one or not.
What was dinner time like? Like, what kind of food did you have, and was there enough food for everyone to eat?
I can't remember ever being hungry, so we always had enough to eat. It wasn't, it was certainly the plainest of food, but we did have enough. But there were a lot of people that didn't have enough.
Were any of your close friends affected by the Depression with loss of work or health?
I can't remember particularly any close friend. I did have, there was one couple I remember that I feel like they were hungry at times. They really did not have any income whatever and was just left on the mercy of neighbors more or less.
Did you have to work during the Depression?
I didn't work during the Depression other than at home and doing whatever I could at home.
What was Christmas like?
Well, Christmas was always a joyous occasion, no matter whether we had anything or not. We always got together and just loved each other and enjoyed being together on Christmas. And my mother was a sort of I'll say she had a magic wand. She always managed to come up with something good to eat and always presents for the children. And so it was always a great time for us.
Could you tell me about your favorite Christmas memory?
I can't remember any particular occasion that I want to remember. I'm going to leave that to others.
Who was your best friend when you were a child?
When I was a child, my best friend was named Mary, but I can't even remember her last name. But I can remember us climbing trees together, and we had a big bag swing that we'd take up to the top of the tree with us, and then jump on the bag and swing down. And I remember her particularly.
How large was the school that you went to?
How large? Well, I went to several different schools because my dad moved quite often to find work during the time when I was growing up. And I went to some pretty large schools and some mostly small schools, though, because we mostly lived in small towns.
Are there any teachers that you particularly remember anything about?
Yes, there's one teacher, and I can't tell you her name either, but I remember her, and I can see her in my mind quite vividly, that she encouraged me. For some reason, she liked me and made over me, and that made me want to do real good in her class, and that was English. So I remember that. Yes. I think your teacher has a great effect on your life.
Do you have any family heirlooms that have a history to them?
Not really. I had one thing of my mother's that she had when she was really young, and that was a sugar bowl, a real sugar bowl. And I've already given that to my daughter, and she's giving it to her daughter. So my granddaughter has her great grandmother's sugar bowl.
Did you go to church?
I went to church, and it was a little white church on a hill, and that was when I was very young. And then that was a little country church, but I joined the church first in Longview, Texas, a fairly large church. But Longview then was just a very small little town.
What was your favorite or most memorable birthday?
Well, I think right now it's my 90th birthday. We had a celebration and all my family was there. And we had a great time. And I just am so thankful to be able to be 90 years old and my husband living to be that age too. And we're thankful for all the years we've had.
When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I think I had visions of being a writer, and I was always good. I always loved to read, and I read a lot of stories and novels and all kinds of historical books, and I dreamed of being a writer, but that didn't come true.
What family traditions or stories were part of your growing up?
Well, I can't recall anything in particular that I could tell about that meant a great deal to me. It was just mostly going to school and finishing school and working. That's as I grew up.
Did you have any nicknames as a child?
Well, my real name is Altha, but when I was in school and growing up, I was called Deanie, which that's a natural name.
Did you have any pets as a child?
Pets? No, I can't remember any pets in particular.
What kind of household chores did you do?
Well, I went to work in the public, in business, whenever I was quite young, just 17. And I can't remember before that. I helped take care of the smaller children and worked in the house, whatever I could do and whatever my mother told me to do, I tried to do.
Do you remember your first date?
I really don't, but yes, in a way I remember when I was 16, a boy who was a distant cousin of mine, but he seemed to be very fond of me, and he gave me a ruby ring that I wore for many, many years. And my daughter, he gave it to me on my 16th birthday, and when my daughter was 16, I gave it to her. And when her daughter was 16, she gave it to her. So it's been quite a ring and passed through several generations.
How and when did you meet your spouse?
Well, I remember the first time I ever saw Stanley. We were living on a corner there, and he had come to El Dorado from Louisiana to work here. And he cut across our yard going to his work. He lived near us across the street on down the block. And some girl was spending the night with me, and I said, look, who's that crossing the street? And standing, you can imagine how good looking he was, and he was about 22. And I thought, oh man, I'd love to know that guy. And I wonder where he's from, because I'd never seen him before. So that was my first glance at Stanley. But it wasn't long till I made an excuse to go over to see the landlady where he was living. He was Morgan. So that's how we met.
What was the most memorable thing about your wedding?
Well, we had a very plain wedding. We just, another couple that we were very close to at that time went with us. And we drove to Camden and went to a preacher's house in Camden and were married without any fanfare at all. But the marriages lasted, it will soon be 71 years.
What national or world event do you most clearly remember?
I didn't understand what national what?
Or world event?
Oh, well, I remember the wars. I even remember World War I, when the boys were traveling by train through the small towns, and I remember going to town one day when a train was coming through, and the boys were leaning out the windows of the train, waving to us, and we were waving back. And that was when they wore the small little caps and had leggings on, and it was entirely different from World War II. And of course, World War II was part of my adult life, and America was sacrificing and doing all we could to help win the war. And how the main thing I remember is the celebration when the war was over, and everyone was so happy.
If you could relive one particular time or event, what would it be?
Well, there's been so many wonderful times in my life until it's hard to pick out a particular one. But of course, my whole life has been great. And I've had a good husband and just one child. But I've had a lot of happy events. So I can't tell you one in particular.
That's all.
So that was it. Great.
Okay, go ahead and ask him to state his name and all that stuff for us.
State your name, date of birth, and place of birth.
Alvin, Wren, March 10th, 1929, El Dorado, Arkansas.
What is your earliest memory?
I guess about the first memory, I guess, is the horses getting out down at the Terry Dairy barn where they kept the horses, which they delivered milk and ice and all that. And they kept their horses about a block away from us, and they all got out and was running up the road, and we all run out to see them, and they made me get back in the house so I wouldn't get stampeded and anything. But very few memories during those times. I was extremely young.
During the Depression, what did your father do for a living?
He mostly was a paper hanger and painter, but I can remember him doing some minor sign work and minor carpenter work. Just would do most anything that he could do, and lucky to find any kind of work.
Did your mom work outside of the home?
Yes, my mother ran a little lunch stand, which was across the street from the old Red Brown School. At that time, we didn't have cafeterias in the school or anything like that, and of course, very few people could afford to eat out. They would bring their lunch, which might be biscuits with a finger stuck down it, filled up with sergeant syrup or something, or sausage and biscuits or something like that. But she, for those few that customers she could get, she made hamburgers which you sold for a nickel apiece. Or you could buy a bowl of soup for a nickel, soup and crackers for a nickel. Soda pops were a nickel. She sold candy, and most of the bars she handled were a penny apiece. At that time, you could buy a quarter-pound Baby Ruth for a nickel, Butterfinger, or any of the others. But none of our customers evidently had a nickel, so most of hers were penny Baby Ruths, Butterfingers, and such. You had to sell a lot of merchandise to make very little money. My brother-in-law was in the bottling business, and my mother would buy a case of cold drinks from him for 80 cents. You'd have 24 bottles, which she sold at a nickel apiece. She had to furnish the ice to cool them down, and after doing all that and selling 24 bottles, she made 40 cents, less the cost of the ice.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one brother and two sisters.
Are they older or younger than you?
Do what?
Are they older or younger than you?
Are they older or younger?
Oh, they're all older than me. I was the baby.
Speak up more.
What was your home like?
Well, we had a house and my mother's little store on a big lot. We had plenty of space for a big chicken yard, huge spaces for gardening, which my daddy did, and the rent for the entire, we'll say, eighth of a block probably, was $10 a month. And lots of months we couldn't pay the $10. The owners of the property would like to let my brother and daddy do some painting or some kind of repair work around the house to help take care of that $10. It was a small house. Sometimes, you know, we had our electricity turned off, sometimes gas. Sometimes over at my mother's store, she used kerosene stove, that we didn't have any natural gas. And I remember neighbors coming down to get water out of our outdoor faucet just to have water to drink. I don't know where they ever took a bath, but just get a bucket full of water. You know, they were even worse shape than we were.
What was dinner time like?
Dinner time? We always had maybe 3 different kinds of meat and about 6 different vegetables. My mother would never throw anything away. If we got down to just one serving of some kind of meat, that came back the next time. And she'd add to that, and any vegetables left over would come back the next time and add to that. So we had quite a choice.
Did you have any favorite food that your mama cooked for you?
Oh, everything. She was extremely good at making cobblers. I remember that very well. And of course, like I say, she was extremely good cook. Everything was good.
What was Christmas like?
Well, it was always a happy occasion. You know, being my age, I didn't have anything to compare it to. I thought that that's the way things always were, you know. We usually wouldn't have but 1 or 2 presents, and I remember one year we had only fruit, some oranges and apples and such as that. But most of our childhood toys were homemade, like rubber guns. My brother and daddy were very good at making those, and would use old inner tubes that come off of cars. Of course, in those days, there wasn't any tubeless tires, and the inner tubes would be used till sometimes you couldn't hardly get a good piece of ammunition off of them because they'd be completely covered with patches. But you'd take those and cut them with scissors and make the ammunition, and we'd make other type things. Schoolboy Rowe, who was a famous pitcher at the time, would bring home some things. And when one of your skates would wear out, then you'd use the other skate to make a homemade scooter that used half the skate on the front and half the skate on the back for the wheels, and you'd use that as a scooter. And there wasn't too many bicycles. The first bicycle I ever got was a used one that cost my sister $10, but that was later on in years after she had got old enough to go to work. But like I say, I can't remember all that many toys for Christmas, but I had plenty of toys to play with.
Are there any teachers that you remember?
Any what?
Teachers?
Teachers? Oh, I was blessed with good teachers. My first grade teacher, especially, and then even on up in high school. Of course, that was after the depression was sort of wearing off, but Mrs. Brummett in the first grade.
What was the scariest thing that ever happened to you as a child?
Scariest? I've never had anything real scary. I've been lost out in the woods, out on the lake. Was, you know, wasn't really scary. It was just a matter of spending the night and finding my way out the next day. But as far as really being scared, I can't think of any time that worried a little bit maybe, but not really scared.
What did you and your best friends do that was the most fun?
Well, we played hide and seek, and you play spin the bottle and get to walk around the house with your girlfriend, or we had very simple games, and no video games or anything like that, so we just did with what we could and didn't know any different.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, it's hard to say. It varied from time to time, but I finally went to work for the railroad when I got out of high school, and I guess maybe that might have been one of the things I wanted to be, because during the Depression, the people who worked for the railroad were rich by comparison to most people because they had a regular job, had a good income. Most people didn't have even a regular job, and those that did might be, as my brother-in-law, would work for $25 a week, and he was among the fortunate ones.
What was your proudest moment?
Proudest moment? Well, the most emotional moment I guess I ever had was when I joined the church. I don't know whether you call that proud or not, but I've had a number of proud moments. Becoming Alvarez outstanding JC one year, or various things like that, but I can't think of anything that was really an emotional triumph, except when I walked down the aisle at the church.
What nicknames did you have?
Do what?
What nicknames did you have?
Well, in high school they called me Little Al, L-I-L, possibly like Little Abner. And then in latter years, because of my immense size, they called me Big Al.
How old were you when you went on your first date?
Oh, probably, see, I was pledged in a high school fraternity. I was probably 13, 14 years old. And of course, I didn't have a car at that time, so it was a walking date. We'd walk up and see a movie and walk back home.
What time was your curfew?
I don't think I really had a certain time I had to be in, but I knew I should be in at a certain time, but I can't remember saying I had to be in by a certain time.
How much allowance did you get?
None.
What national What national or world event do you most clearly remember?
What
What national or world event do you most clearly remember?
national event? Probably when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941. It was, we was all wondering, nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. We didn't know what that meant to us really, but I wasn't but 12 years old at the time. But I can remember everybody trying to figure out how that affected the United States. But then when we all found out that that was American property and they destroyed our Navy and such as that, people lined up the next day. I can remember going and selling extras at that time. You had radio, but people wanted to read about it. And every time something important happened, they put out an extra. And that was a way for me to go and make a little money. Extras sold for a nickel apiece, and you made a penny and a half by selling one. So if you sold 10 papers, you made 15 cents, which was, you know, you could do you could buy a hamburger, a Coke, and a candy bar.
Wait, what are we going to start with?
You asked me a minute ago about did I get allowance. Of course, there wasn't any money to give as an allowance. It took everything that we made to eat, which we ate well, at least didn't go hungry. There was a lot of biscuits and cornbread and stuff that didn't cost much to make. And like I say, we raised chickens. We had our own chickens, had a big garden. We, you know, would can some of that. Mother canned fruit and dry apples and, you know, put up fresh vegetables that we raised during the summer that my daddy raised. But to make money myself, there wasn't hardly any way until I got on up to where I was, you know, 9, 10, or 11. But I would get out and sell magazines, for instance, to make a little money. At that time, you had Liberty magazine and Saturday Evening Post and Collier's and stuff like that. The biggest seller was Life magazine. It sold more than anybody. They sold for a dime. And by selling one of those, you made 2.5 cents. To sell a Saturday Evening Post for a nickel, you made a penny and a half.
Who's on the phone?
So I would take an assortment of magazines and go and sell those, and I'd make, they come out on Wednesdays and on Fridays, and over a week's time I might make as much as $1. And then, like I say, selling it as I got older, sell those extras, which I'd make a penny and a half a piece on, and at the maximum probably sell 10, because the boys that were old enough to have a route, you know, would go out and cover their area, and they'd probably sell more of them out on their route. But even to make 15 cents was, you know, and I'd find scrap aluminum and copper wire and brass fittings or something like that, and take it to the junkyard and maybe get 10 or 15 cents for that. At that time, 3-jar lids were aluminum, and you find any castaways, well, you get that, and you find some place where electricians have been working on the high line, some find a few pieces of copper wire, and you know, just accumulate whatever you could.
If you could relive one particular time or event, what would it be?
That's a hard question. There's a lot of them I would like to relive and change. But as far as having a big thrill or anything, I can't think of anything that would be more important than lots of other things.
What would people be most surprised to learn about you?
About me? I think everybody knows everything about me. No, I really don't know an answer to that question.
Is there any heirloom, like a family heirloom that you have?
There's nothing that I have that remember a couple of things that are.
Daddy's book.
Hmm?
Daddy's arithmetic.
Yeah, we've got a little arithmetic made easy by Wren. It's a little booklet that back during the days before computers and ad machines and such as that, he wrote a little pamphlet on how to gauge corn in the crib and how to figure board feet and certain amount of lumber to figure cordwood and some things that were used at that time and a fast way to do it. And a lot of information about that. I still have the original book that I think he wrote in 1923. But there's a couple of other little items like I have a wooden tomahawk that my sister in Idaho brought down to me in about 1938. And just little things like that. My sister has a little burned, you used to have little burning equipment that you'd burn lines in everything, of something I made back when I was in grade school. It's really amazing when I think about a hickory nut that my mother kept in a box along with pictures and everything. That hickory nut's been in there as long as I can remember from a small child. If it hadn't been lost, but I don't have it myself. But little things like that that I can remember. That's about it.
That's all.
Go ahead.
During those depression years, from where we are right now, and from where I was born and raised, within an 8-block radius there, I could count them up, but I expected there was at least 10 groceries. There was Holman down here, Huckabee over there, Hawkins and Phillips down this way, Anglin's grocery store, Sutherland's, McElvain's, Spooner, Troll. That's 10 right there, and within 8 blocks of here, where we are, where I was born and raised. And all of those had almost all their business on credit, because if anybody had cash, they could go down to Kroger's and Safeway, which sat on the square downtown. Safeway was over right now. I know that people wouldn't go where they normally charge. Had the cash if you went to, but all the had they got the ticket. They often just stick it in an individual file, and then keep those there, and they lost a lot of money. People would move off and go on, and but when somebody come in to pay their bill, it was like a big celebration. Gave the kids, they always brought their kids in with them when they come to pay the bill, because they got a sack full of candy, and the store owners, knowing that was a holiday, we got paid a lot of money, and they had to stretch out the period of time that they ever got their money. And you'd go into a grocery store, you wouldn't say, give me a pound of bologna, like, give me a nickel's worth, or a dime's worth, and they'd slap up there and slap off bologna or cheese, like that, and then you could buy what we call a stick of crackers, which was one of those little tubes like you have in a pound-sized cracker. Well, it was individual package. You could buy one of those for a nickel, for bologna, or a can of sardines for a nickel. It didn't cost much to eat out. Get you a can of pork and beans for a nickel. It was tough days. And at that time, nobody thought about locking the house when they left. They knew that if they walked in there, they'd suffer getting shot, so they didn't walk in there. The criminal didn't have the advantage then like they do now. But we never, unless we're going out of town, we might have locked it, but best I remember, the door was never locked. and we never did have any problems. A lot of difference. That's